Hi, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on week 2 of the conversation. We've got Chef Christy Wakoma here with us again from Seattle. She's going to just finish off. She was dropping so many gems last week. I just could not bring her back. And then we have my genius friend, culinary Black history expert, Therese Nelson. She's going to jump on. And then I have my co-host here, Chef Erica. How are
Hi.
you? How are you doing this week? Just check in. Let's check in.
A little overwhelmed.
Yeah.
We were already stressed because of the virus, and now we are very overwhelmed because of the protesting.
The other virus.
Yes.
Virus.
And we're just trying. I'm just trying to feel through my feelings. I should say it like that, so that I'm still feeling like a stable person and making it through the day. I'm still working on a daily basis, so I need to work through my feelings so that I don't feel I'm enraged, and want to choose my words wisely when I'm speaking to people of all colors. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I haven't been choosing my words wisely. I'm not going to lie. I think I went in for 2 whole days. So, I mean, I wake up pretty early. So I was starting about 5:36 in the morning and letting people have it till about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Then I've decided that that's not productive work. So I'm not doing that anymore. However, yeah.
And did you find that you were exhausted after that?
No, actually, I felt kind of good.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I mean, we all have to release it in some kind of way. I mean, I think I was doing quite a bit of, I was doing extra work, just trying to relieve myself mentally to stay, keep my mind clear.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so.
For sure.
Well, we made it though. We made it to another week.
Made it to week 2.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as you guys come in, post your comments in the link, and as they come up, we'll pop them up on the screen. But I'm going to bring in Chef Christy. She's rocking the beautiful red lips today. Hey, boo.
You know, I told y'all last week, you got to get it popping. You got to wear a mask all the time. So when you don't have to wear a mask, you got to get the things together.
I know. I've been seeing you work the lashes with the mask, though, girl. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. I have my lashes.
The only thing that don't work is the earrings. The earrings, they don't work.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? How are you feeling after this past week, sis? And happy to see you too.
I feel numb for the most part. I think, and it's interesting because I haven't seen any of the videos. I stopped watching videos years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
It was just violent against my spirit, and I just can't do it. But I'm trying to pull it together. My word for the day is rejoice.
Nice.
I feel, and I've been saying it actually. Probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a conversation with one of my girlfriends who does a lot of activist work in Oakland, Jennifer Johns. And we've been talking about the aspect that a lot of people don't talk about this, is that this is spiritual warfare. And how you have to be prepared. And one of the things, it was so wonderful. I walked into the kitchen and my sous chef was playing some rebel music. And I was like, exactly. Like, and it was real. I loved it because it was so like specific about what we need to be doing as people to combat this kind of ideology that ruins our lives, and what, what part we play.
Yeah.
I think that's another part is, owning what responsibility we have in these spaces so that we can take our ownership back. So it's just been a lot of quiet time.
Oh, you just had a very important word.
Yeah.
Ownership.
Yeah.
Ownership. Getting it back.
Yeah. I think sometimes
it hit me hard. That word just hit like that is like true reality right there. We lost something so quickly, but at the same time we didn't have it in the first place to a certain degree.
Right.
So I said something earlier today in an article, and I said And if I offend anyone, I apologize, but this is how I feel.
There's no,
Oh,
no, we don't apologize for our
well,
feelings anymore.
this is how I feel. I said, white people wake up every day feeling like it's okay, but and they come into this world, and it's beautiful and simple and easy. We're born into this world. Many of us are born into this world with fear. And ownership, as in taking back ourselves so that we can stand up and be proud of who we are, which we know we are proud people. But we get knocked down so much.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, I know my view is not the most popular of views. And
No, say it, girl. That's what this is about.
But and when I say ownership, and I can identify with that aspect of it, but I think that one of the things that a lot of times we miss as people is that we miss the part where we play into these games too, and we play into them because we want to be comfortable. And then all of a sudden, when we realize that no matter how much we play into it, the rules are never going to be on our side.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, we want to lift up the bandwagon and be like, "Oh, we're being downtrodden." You know what? Fuck all that. You got to take your responsibility in these spaces of privilege, even when it's not comfortable. And as Black folks, sometimes we are willing to forego certain things or take part in certain things, knowing that this is not really something that belongs to us, but I'm going to take a hold of it anyway and then keep it pushing, but don't necessarily want to take the consequences. And I just think that every human, we all benefit from our privileges. And when asked to give them up, we don't want to. And right. Then, and there's a huge difference, right? There's a huge difference in that's like the ideal of prejudice versus racism, and that kind of thing. And I understand that, just the whole ideology of racism is not something that I can own. Right. But I also think that there's just some spaces that we benefit from that we don't always take acknowledgement for.
Right. And I get it. I'm going to pause you and bring Theresa in, and then I'm going to make a statement, and then we'll jump right into the conversation with Theresa. Hey, love, how are you?
Hey, ladies.
Teresa's been doing the work all day. Girl, I know you're tired. I know you're tired.
But what just seeing your faces is enough to be excited. Yeah.
So what I was going to say is, when you talk about ownership, when I was talking to my mentor yesterday or today from the Urban League here, she was like, just stay off of social media. And I was like, no, I can't. I want to, but I can't. And the reason why I can't is, for me, I've had 20 years. I've been out of high school for 20 years. I've had the latter part of my life living in suburban America. And yes, I've experienced all types of racism. When the high school that I was supposed to go to, they still had Confederate flags flying in their cars. So my parents were like, yeah, no, you're going to go to the newer school. But I graduated in 1998, and I'm not joking. There may have been 12 Black people in my graduating class, 12 in 1998. So the reason why I've been sort of letting people have it is because I realize that I am, and there's this terminology, and I accept it. I am a white woman's Black girl. Spent a lot of time in the suburbs. I feel safe and comfortable, and they say things and do things around me that they probably wouldn't do around other people of color. And what that does is that gives them the ease of conscience of being able to say, I have a Black friend. Mm-hmm. I do business with a Black person, because for so long, I try to have these little conversations politely and quietly and behind closed doors, and not wanting to rock the boat and upset. And I'm with you now, Christy. Yeah, fuck all that. I've given y'all 20 years of nice Shanita, real polite, real quiet, trying to explain to you how your biases and how your behavior is unacceptable. Now, either don't post that shit where I can see it, or don't post it at all. And if you post it, that is inviting me to come to your page and verbally share my opinions, because that's what the purpose of social media is, right? If you post something, you obviously want folks to comment. So that's how I feel about it.
I mean, I can appreciate. I have no way to. I feel like we all sort of have to digest and kind of occupy spaces we occupy as effectively as we can, right? Like if you are being confronted with a particular kind of ism and you feel like you need to storm the castle, I agree 100%. I wonder sometimes though, it feels sometimes I don't know, it feels exhausting to try and make people better for them. Like, and I don't know that I'm interested. I personally don't have the capacity to make people better. I mean, I feel like the space you occupy in the world. Like, I mean, I think what you're saying is like the people who you consider friends or who are out here in your space, all right? Like who you connected to, just out here reckless. I mean, I get it. I get you are better than me because that's a clear unfriend. That's a clear you don't need to be in my personal space. I feel like there's something about this moment where, because I mean, to your point, like you are trying to engage people and kind of have open conversations so that folks can kind of do better, hopefully, or just like not get away with it. But I wonder what getting away really means. Like you get to say what you want to say, but I see you. Like I kind of appreciate that the democratization of social media sort of is telling on a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
In a way is letting you know who people really are, at least for what they're willing to say. And to your point, like I mean, you talking about growing up in suburbs. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. We used to be the car theft capital of the world. Detroit, Chicago, New York, Newark, Oakland. Like these are places where being Black is a visceral. And so the juxtaposition to being polite for white people is not something I personally grew up with. My position in the world is always like you have to move in the world fully aware that the most patriotic thing you could be is a law-abiding Black citizen, right? Like
and sometimes that's still not even good enough. And sometimes it's not even good enough.
Confronted with the reality of like injustice every day. You live in a place where you live in a country that's literally telling you are not a citizen for real. You don't have the same rights. What posture do you move in the world if that's the reality? And for a lot of us, to Chrissy's point, like you're trying to, I don't know, change minds, change hearts in spaces that are clearly without conscience. Like who said it? Like I feel like this. I mean, I'm missing the quote someplace, but this sort of sense of like anytime you ask people with no conscience to do better, you are automatically going to fail. Like there are no better angels in some spaces, and if you identify that in the spaces you're trying to change, you are literally fruitless labor.
Right.
For me, like I just like, especially living in the city that I live in, there could be a lot of explaining. I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. I'm too tired.
Yeah, well, I had a few days.
You're asking me this question. The fact that you're asking me these questions right now, like, shows me that you have such a long way to go. And there's so many white people out here doing work that can teach you something different. You know, just Google white people who do racism work, and I'm sure that they can, like, you know, they can, or anti-bias work or all that kind of stuff. They can school you better than I will ever be able to school you, because I'm just not you. And the fact that you would even think of it, it just astounds me of how, like, one of the things, and I don't know if this is too graphic, but, you know, I just think about what kind of joy do you get out of when you see people's to their demise? And what I know is that there are several different ways that you can experience pleasure, but I know that there are some real clear-cut ways that people derive pleasure, through their senses. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you think about like what it would take for a human to kneel down in front of a camera that you see being
and put his hands in his pockets like he was thinking about lunch.
Like, you know what I'm saying? But no, he wasn't thinking about lunch. He was thinking about pleasure, and what kind of like pleasure that people get out of Black bodies in so many different ways. It's just the most disgusting thing that I could ever even imagine. And so it's just like, for me, like that somehow there's any kind of justification, any kind of critique, any kind of anything you can say about that. and you had not done it before now, and this is the one that made you think something differently, I really, I don't have anything for you. I have nothing for you. And I'm sorry. I'm not even sorry. I mean, like, I'm not even sorry. I'm sorry that you're that human that didn't get that message. And that it's this huge display of like hatred and also like a sensual excitement about seeing our demise.
Yeah.
When those things are at play, I just, what do we have to talk about?
Nothing. Which brings us to a good point. So, Teresa, we're talking about work, and you've been doing a lot of work in the foodways and the Black culinary history. So, for people who are new to the conversation, I think that there's a group of people who don't understand what foodways is. And of course, you guys know that I'm in Kansas City on the Kansas side, but really I do most of my business on the Missouri side. And we're still not even accepting of the fact that that's the South. They still struggle with that. They forget that they're Southern. So that's what I'm dealing with here. So just tell me, give us a little intro into your work and what you've been working on and how that whole conversation is still in the foodway space relevant to what we are seeing in the world. Really.
Right, sure. So I don't know. I think it was probably at this point is about 11 years ago. And it was right around time. I feel like I met Erica not too long after that. But I was a very young chef feeling a sense of angst, right? This feeling of why don't I know more Black chefs? Why do I not see myself in these spaces that folks ask me to occupy, right? Like I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do as a young cook. I'm getting those markers of credibility. I'm doing all the things that people say are the things you are to do.
But you're on the track. You're following the trajectory.
Mm-hmm. But even in that, it's feeling inauthentic, and I'm trying to figure out why. And something about that has stayed with me, and I've been thinking a lot about recently. But I just started. I don't know. It was the downturn of 2008. Something about that 2008 downturn was a big thing for a lot of people. I think it was a moment where a lot of people were having to recalibrate priorities. Thinking about that now, it was a moment where a lot of people were having to contend with how they were moving in an industry that was going to shift, right?
Yeah.
So I just started thinking about why at that point I hadn't touched Taste of Country Cooking since college, why I hadn't thought about any of the really dope reasons I wanted to come to this work, any of the touchstones that should be important, and why I wasn't seeing it represented back to me, why I was meeting Black chefs who wouldn't talk to me about race or talk to me about identity. Why I have all these questions. And it's a powerful thing to get confronted with history because it's these receipts that you can't unknow, right?
Right.
You read Vernon, Grosvenor, you can't unknow those words. You can't, that posture sort of gets into your marrow. So I wrote this small thing. This is in the bombast of a 20-something-year-old. I called it a manifesto. And it was this thought about why we are gifted with the art, the sort of ability to work in this industry we all give our lives over to. But shouldn't that mean more? Shouldn't it mean more than just ego? Shouldn't it mean more than, then the food? It's got to mean something about community. And it was like this deep dive. It was literally just 40 people. One of those people was Christy. I remember very clearly asking my mom or just people I know who by degrees of separation I could talk to, who was brown in this country in food that I could who's older, wiser, just smarter, who I could talk to. Lots of people were generous. Lots of people didn't want to talk to me still about race. They were, the point you just talked about is so interesting about the spaces in which we occupy that are clearly inequitable. So many of the chefs I was talking to were trying to contort themselves into an industry in a way that did not see them as full people.
Not at all.
And it just seems so crazy to me. It was the power of youth is being able to see clearly an environment that you are not fully entrenched in yet, right? Yeah. So it just became this thing, this rabbit hole, right? Once you read one book, you read another, and you get sort of confronted with the truth of history. Truth of words is really what I found.
Right.
And the power of writing and who gets to tell stories is really important to me. So you talk about like the way I frame my work. I mean, I'm a chef first. I'm a private chef. I work as my professional life, what pays my mortgage and keeps me employed, dollars in my bank account is the work of being a hospitality professional. But the soul work I do is really about sort of how I do that work from a posture that allows me not to lose my mind and also to build community in authentic ways. Some of it is writing, a lot of it is catharsis. Honestly, the first 7 years of this project was me knowing more, right? Like I get confused or concerned sometimes when I listen to us in community talk because it feels sometimes like we are asking white folks in white spaces to be more beholden to our culture than we are. Sometimes it feels as though we are having these very broad conversations about what our foodways are, but we've not defined them for ourselves. In our culinary practices, in publishing spaces, we haven't really had the latitude to write expansively. I mean, I just talked to Jessica Harris this afternoon about her newest book, but Jessica Harris last year won a media award for Cookbook Hall of Fame, was nominated for a book that was her 13th cookbook. Her first nomination all those years didn't win. She got a Cookbook Hall of Fame award in the year she didn't even win for the cookbook she was entered in that year. She talked about being in food before food was cool. And I think that sentiment is so powerful because so often we are beholden to what is of the moment and not really beholden to what is going to be definitive for the times in which we're living. Right? We have responsibility to represent the moment in which we live. And I'm unsure we're able to do that if we don't know who we really are.
Right.
You gotta know where you came from.
It's not about, in so many ways, it's not about, it hasn't been, or at least it hasn't turned into being about policing anybody's blackness or trying to define whether people should cook or anything. It's just, there's a baseline of, our culture, our foodways. You talked about asking about what foodways are. For me, Black foodways is about the fully realized, expansive thought around what our culture looks like in food. It's interrogating the diaspora. It's interrogating our different points of reference from where we're from, what we bring to the table, when we put our whites on and step up to the table, what are we bringing there with us? And don't work.
It's our approach. Yeah. It's our approach.
Yeah.
Why we approach the food differently and the mindset. It has to do. I think that some of that is just in our DNA.
Yep.
Just who we are.
Yeah.
It's just who we are. And so how do you tie this moment? We're in this moment because, I just like to call things as they are. And you've been working in the food space for quite some time. And and if people don't know who are watching, there's been this strange conversation happening in the foodways, specifically Southern, where you have non-African American chefs and restaurant chains taking credit for, I don't even know how to put it, our culture, our food, our ideas. But then somehow when we do it or did it, it was like, oh, you should cook this or you should cook that, or those type of things are not popular. And now all of a sudden it's, of the moment to put pork rinds on your menu.
I mean, I don't want to monopolize conversation, but I mean, I have lots of feelings about it.
It's about you, girl. Go ahead. Tell us.
I just want to say, I don't know if I ever told you this, Theresa. Okay, so I went to, where was we at, Kevin? We was at the Chefs Collaborative Nationals. And Chef Sean Brock came off the stage. He had
Did I roll my eyes?
And then they had, what's the sister's name, Erica, where they had the sister that does the Gullah food over in North Carolina.
Oh shoot, I forgot her name. I'm so sorry.
It's the oldest sister, and she's like the history holder of the Gullah food. So they had her up there, but they had her up there for like 2 seconds, right? And then Sean Brock got up there and talked about his travels and all this other kind of stuff. I've been to Africa, And I was so like, I had this like immediate flashback because I had watched the show that he had on PBS.
Chef Minor Chef.
Yeah, the Minor the Chef. And he had that sister up there that had, her family had created the Nashville chicken. And then he took what he thought was the recipe and then he redid it. And he did not have that sister on that episode. He didn't have her with him in the kitchen. And I walked up to that little man and I lit into him because I was like, you know what? You are not going to steal our stuff. Go. I said, that is so disrespectful that you would have that woman on your show, that you would go to her restaurant and steal her recipe and then take it back to your kitchen and remake it without having her there to like, if this is an exchange of ideas, if you're honoring where you got your ideas from, Lord Jesus, I had to like calm down because I was the only Black woman in South Carolina at this conference when all the people were servers. But okay, that goes.
Okay, you needed to say it and get it off your chest.
It was just the most craziest shit I have ever experienced. I was so excited. Oh, what do I have?
No, because you guys were both talking at the same time. I couldn't hear what Shanita said and what you said.
Oh, what did you say, Shanita?
I was just saying, that part too. They have these Southern conferences and all of the Black people participating are staff, servers.
It was just the same scenario over and over again where you would like literally like talk about your travels to Africa, go to Nashville, all in this same episode. And then literally steal that woman's recipe and make it like he remade it into some kind of like, the gastronomy and the smoke and mirrors and all that business. And it just was the most, I just was outraged in that we always are on our own with this.
Right.
We're never going to be supported in these spaces where people can say, you know what, that's not yours to remake.
Right. That's Southern cooking all together, if you look at it.
Right. Go ahead, Therese. I know you want to say something. We're tagging you.
So here's the thing, right? There's such a... I don't know if you all know Omar Tate. He's Philadelphia-based, and he's brilliant. He traces people, and he's from... He found... ties to South Carolina. Same as me. Like my grandparents are from Latta, South Carolina. Grandmother's living right there right now. And there's something particular about that place, right? And I remember summers going back there. I feel a connectivity to my folks there. I'm from the North, right? Like I have my specific references, and so there's sometimes when I hear folks talk about the South in this particular way, I have to sort of recognize a degree of privilege. I don't know if that's the right word, but there's a sense sometimes that I just think we all have to kind of think about from where we come and how important those traditions are and how much we know about them. I appreciate the idea about Princess Hot Chicken. Andre Prince has stood her ground, right? There's the comparative, everything from fast food chicken chains to the family who runs Ruby Tuesdays backing their son to have a competitive restaurant, like fast casual, same restaurant segment as Princess Hot Chicken, like in the same neighborhood, not the same neighborhood, but in a more desirable neighborhood, so people want to go and consume the hot chicken in a more, gentrified space, right? It would be like, I don't know, somebody going to New Orleans and trying to recreate Leah Chase's legacy in a different, better, more gentrified neighborhood. There is something in that is inherently evil. It is inherently opportunistic. There's this sense that white folks are always discovering something about our culture. And I don't know, and something in the last decade, maybe it's probably in the last 5 years that for me has clicked in, is really that the only real defense we have in that sort of appropriation is knowing better, right? How do we defend against someone who is backed by capitalist systems that really only honor whether you have the dollars to pay to play. You have enough PR to drown out Andre Prince's legacy in a way that allows your hot chicken to exist and be written about and be revered in food media is absurd. But that is not just on us, right? It's not something we can control. What I can control is the fact that we lift up Andre, like, right, that we lift up her family, that when because we are asking people to consume in Tennessee, they consume Prince's hot chicken because they know the difference. It's going back to Ms. Chase's restaurant. But all of that is to say that, I mean, even Sean Brock, like, I am so, maybe it's because I observe food media spaces so often, I'm exhausted with the critique. That in many important ways, I don't know, and you talking about unpopular opinions. I was in Charleston when Sean Brock came to town. I was in culinary school on the ground watching the restaurant industry shift in Charleston when he came to town. I'm watching Esau Green at the Charleston Grill restaurant, who taught me how to make duck confit, who is one of the most brilliant figures in Charleston foodways, but who would never have, he was more than what he was in the restaurant in which he occupied. It was the best option he had in Charleston to work. And so I don't have the capacity personally to be interested in or to consider how white folks want to steal. What I can do is to be so clear-eyed and focus on where Black stories are and where our culture lies, right? It feels like the Charleston stories are really fascinating one. You watch an industry that was so wildly behind the times, so out of sync with the way the rest of the country was starting to eat. And in the absence of Black voices who were able to stand their ground fiscally, Sean Brock was able to come in as this new fangled, bright young talent that was going to revolutionize a food city that has. Charleston is literally the seat of Black life in this country. How can you not have why is that not the Blackest food city in the country? I'm trying to get a conversation going with Charlotte Jenkins. Like, Charlotte Jenkins
that's her name. Yeah.
Right. Charlotte Jenkins is the Gullah Cuisine is one of the seminal books ever written around Gullah foodways. That book literally gave no fucks about what anybody thought about what Charleston and what the Low Country was. She is a continuation, in my opinion, of Verna Mae Grosvenor. A contemporary of hers would be Sally and Robinson. Like, there's something about that place, but the something is the fact that the spaces that give value in the food world are very particular fine dining spaces. And those spaces are translated typically to white people, and they are most comfortable with white people translating culture. So I don't know the answers. One of the things I've become very comfortable with is that I don't have answers for white people's isms. I don't have the capacity to explain why you don't feel. Erica, you all worked in hotels all over the country, as have I. How many departments, from garde to pastry to banquets, have Black bodies who make mechanisms work? You're going to see, people have seen 10 executive chefs pass through their whole careers. And this is a job that can have the most dignity in this industry and make mechanisms run without whether you can. I worked in hotels where we didn't have executive chefs. The Black and brown people in those spaces make those mechanisms work. Different model in restaurants, but typically speaking, every space that is most profitable in this country is built on the body of Black people who are crafting culture, whether it's traditionally fine dining, French, centric, whatever. Before 1977, it was all us. So I just think that there's a posture change that we have to have. We talk about our foodways and our culture, what that represents. It's no excuse, really. I mean, something about not knowing better is that you weren't looking. I mean, I don't know. I get mystified sometimes when I meet people who say they follow my work but haven't read any of the books on the website or haven't gone to the website. We have a very robust Facebook group here, but like, there are 1,000 books on the website that are right there, ready to be read. There are hundreds of hours of content.
But they said it though. They said they follow your work, and that's where we are in this society. We're in the like, click, follow. So then it feels good, right? I didn't read anything she wrote. I just liked it. I'm following it.
I have no interest in. I mean, honestly, like a big part of. I'm a relatively new writer. I mean, the big part of my professional life is shifted into a space of being able to write professionally. But I mean, for a long time, I didn't feel I had the words, and I didn't feel prepared. I'm the same, but I feel the same way that like I think we all talk about the credibility of this work of professional cooking, right? There's a way in which you qualify yourself, right? And I think I took that approach into thinking about writing because there was such a long time where I felt unprepared. Like I didn't, and it wasn't even, it's not a confidence thing. I didn't know enough. I hadn't read enough. And there's this point that kind of clicks in where like, yeah, this content is in the marrow of my bones.
Erica is the one that made me. She made me. I had to stop. Like I was like, I'm not a chef yet. And she was like, "Dog, she was like, if you don't stop this madness, it's the tricks." But I think that it goes along with what you're saying. It's like you're consistently looking for these spaces to be validated, and you don't get it until you get inside this community.
Right.
And then, I mean, yeah, it's not like it wasn't a lack of like, yeah, okay, I know what I do and I do it well, but it's like you're still looking for that space. And hardly ever, like you said, all the Black bodies that make up these institutions, that make up these kitchens, that make up these spaces where basically the chef just comes in and just gleans off the top. You know what I'm saying? Don't even have no depth to what they're doing.
Salt Bay. Sprinkle a little something on it.
Not the Salt Bay. Not the Salt Bay.
I'm just saying, that's what they were. I worked with several chefs. You put some parsley on that and sent it out. Like, really?
Yeah.
Can I say something, you guys, really quick on that part where it's not just here in America.
Yep, that part.
It's abroad. You guys know that I spend most of my happy times in the Caribbean. You can go in any of those resorts, and it's all our brothers and sisters. And guess who is the executive chef that they bring in from France or from Germany or from Austria, and they're running the show. They're not running the show. How are they out there cooking Bahamian food? How are they out there cooking Jamaican food? You got Indian chefs running Jamaican kitchens and resorts down in Jamaica. You know, come on. You know, without our brothers and sisters, there wouldn't be anything that is like over the top.
And to that part, I watched the Netflix show that has Digby on it, and I just watched that episode because I really wasn't interested in reform all those other restaurants. But I found humor in that episode, right? You have Tom and Peter. I don't really know what their real names are, but let's just call them Tom and Peter, who had it in their mind, right? They were going to develop nachos in New York. And then, and then take the nachos to the Caribbean, to where's he at?
Virgin Islands.
He's in
St. Croix. To St. Croix. And they couldn't figure out why the locals wouldn't eat there.
The thing that shocked me so much about that show, and particularly that episode, was so. And Erica, you could talk about this probably more than I could, but like you are paid for a whole crew to go down. You are paid resources to think about and to support a business on this island. You put resources into helping. The whole premise of that show is thinking about restaurants that are in precarious spaces that have exact locations or just are in some kind of struggle because they need that little bit of like extra to help them get over the hump and sort of stabilize their business. And you go to one of the blackest places on earth and you decide that the people who you want to highlight are people who are, by very definition, gentrifying the space that is absurd. You don't even understand. You have not, in their own words, had no willingness, no thought about talking to and being in community with, thinking about collaborating with the local people who, y'all talked about the trauma of going through storms. These people lived this, but you dropped in and got a whole crew to come and pay dollars to make your business stable.
Girl,
That was so interesting to me because I felt like.
And then when he talked about the
resources and to center a business that was already there, why was that not the story? Why was it not interesting to think about these Black lives who I talked to Jessica Harris because her latest book is about the postcards that she's collected over the years, and they're like the iconography of Black life in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. And so much of her travel, so much of her food writing is about interrogating images and imagery. And these postcards are so beautiful, but they are so clear-eyed about the transactional nature of hospitality, right? Think about, we wear the mask, with Dunbars, we wear the mask, right? Like we are out in these spaces and we recognize as hospitality professionals that we are our products, who we are, this notion of the commodity, making our work a commodity is very real. When you took us to Tortola, Erica, something about seeing people who have to contend with their culture as tourism, their culture as a tool for survival is a very particular posture to operate from. And that show was so gross to me because it felt like you had an opportunity there to think about, to expand on. What would that show have looked like what would that show have looked like if it was centering those people who are every day, they went to the same storm those white men who decided to go into. And that could have been a story about how to rebuild spaces that we take for granted as given. These spaces, these people's lives are your vacation. Their culture is your tourism. There's got to be more reciprocity.
Right. For sure.
In that relationship. I feel like this moment is so much about where our value system is, but also what part we play in this transaction. I get that we are in business, right? Like some of the main reasons why I'm transitioning my life out of the kitchen is because the transactional nature of the profession, the restaurant business, the business side of cooking has nothing to do with our culture. Has nothing to do with what you cook. It has nothing to do with what you bring to the table. It's a given that we're going to bring fire. It's a given that what we have to say on a plate is dope and delicious. But that does not translate to the very sick space that the commodity, the transactional capitalistic part of this industry is about. I feel like we conflate the two in a way that diminishes any progress.
Right.
Sure.
Woo, child.
Yeah, I know.
I love you so much. I freaking love you because the way your brain thinks. It just, it just like make these little small turns, and the way that you're able to reflect on them is so beautiful. And you're always keeping us at the forefront. I'm so excited about your writing. I'm so excited about the turns that you're taking and the relationships that you're building, because basically we are just taking what Erica started and we get to take it and do it in the forms that we do it. Yeah. And it just all blends back to this.
That's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to just continue to grow and progress and keep moving forward, Exactly. I had to go back to Teresa when she said that. And then also when you said, Chrissy, you weren't ready. And then you turned around, Teresa, and you said it was ingrained in you. Mm-hmm. It brought tears to my eyes. I have goosebumps. This is
we're not gonna do this. You have us crying on here.
Supposed to do, know, and everything else that you said, it was you were preaching. Your words. I'm speechless because you've touched me and you got it. You understood why you were supposed to be in Tortola. Shanita, you understand why you were supposed to go through all your trials and tribulations of what you've gone through. Same for you, Chrissy. You're about to open up this $1 million restaurant that is going to blow everybody's freaking mind.
That's right.
And we all had to go through all this crap.
Yeah.
To get to this one point.
And I'm excited, Teresa, about your the writing and the work that you're doing, because people have a lot of flack for Tyler Perry, and that's fine. I don't really want to get into that piece of it. But what I'm saying is that when we're looking at food, and if we want to change the imagery for the younger generation, then we have to be the authors of those stories. And we have to set the tone for what means to be a Black chef, not just in America, but in general. And that if you don't have to check the same boxes as someone else, and Christy, this is my branding friend. She says you are on point with your branding right now. She loves your branding. And you don't have to check those same boxes in order to be successful. Like, we just don't. I think that we're at a point where we are now able to, and it's not about taking back who stole what or who whatever. It's about I'm going to be in charge of my story now. I'm going to be in charge of what foodways means for me and for my community, and you don't get to tell me what grits look like for me.
Right.
I'm glad you experienced them in the way that you experienced them, but now I'm about to tell you how I experienced them.
And I'm just gonna say, for all you people that hate on sugar grits, hate on her, because I'm gonna put sugar in my grits from time to time, and you don't gotta like it. It's more sweet.
I don't necessarily hate on sugar grits. I hate on instant grits. That's my problem.
Okay.
I love y'all. I gotta go.
We love you.
So glad to be a part of this. This was amazing, and I'm so excited about the next conversations. I'm gonna be checking it out.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're so excited about your venture, your next journey. You are inspiration to us all. We're constantly learning from you and watching you. Every time you go on live, you inspire someone, and especially us, to keep on going down. You come on this beautiful. It's like you're sunshine when you go on live, and you pick us up and help us get through the next.
For you, Christy.
We have to do this. Oh yeah, it says when does your restaurant open? We just got a comment.
You know, in the age of COVID, we're looking in sometime in August. It'll be, and we'll make some more announcements when it comes soon. So I'll make sure to let y'all know. And then we'll start off. So, you know, we're gonna start off with the takeout, because we're not gonna fool around with that temperature taking business. We're just not gonna do it. So, so when we get the full on, then I'll let you guys know, because then y'all y'all know what we gotta do.
You know we're there.
We're there with our aprons on, ready to dive in there. If you gotta wash dishes, girl, we'll be there to wash dishes, sweep the floors, do whatever. Pick up, you know, because we got your back.
I can't wait for y'all to see it. It's amazing.
I'm excited. And then, to just before you go, you have inspired me, because y'all know I'm more of a behind the scenes kind of girl. I'll let you have it like behind the scenes. So just coming out of that and making my voice be heard is something that is new to me. So, I mean, I say it right all of the time, but Christy is always making her voice heard. And so I'm like, well, shit.
You know what? Because we got to do it, because there's so many young women and men and people that are looking to us, and we didn't have it. And so we have to do it. It ain't even no choice, right? We just have to do it. And so I'm grateful to be able to do it, because I don't want nobody to have to go through the searches I had to go through just to get to this point right now. It didn't make any sense. Now that I know how many of us are out there, no, never again. No. I love you.
Love you.
So
what's next? We're in this moment. It feels like the eyes of the world are watching us. And, you know, my thing is food. I know that food is policy, and the only way that I can affect that right now here is giving away free produce. Aaron's coming for sugary grits. Free produce, and just trying to get people fed. That's just a small piece. But really, what's next? What do we need to do as people of color operating this food space? Because I don't want this to be a show just about talking. I want to get us to a point where we're having some like calls to action. And I definitely want you to drop I've been posting on your website, but make sure you drop that in the link, because I do feel like that the books and the resources that you provide are super valuable. But what's next? What do
you mean? What am I working on next, or what I think is next in like sort of general?
Both.
I mean, I think it's interesting how folks are finally discovering people like Karen Washington and Leah Penniman. Both of those women have been doing Ben Burkett in Mississippi. Like, there are farmers who have been out here in these streets, who have been teaching us about what real food sovereignty is and looks like. And I feel like chefs have been, especially Black chefs, have not been in those conversations at all. I remember when Karen Washington started her Black Farmers Conference up here, and it was so revolutionary, right? Like this opportunity for her to she was bringing Black chefs from all over the world into Brooklyn and to Manhattan. And she did a couple outside of New York, but even this last year was amazing. The connectivity of the way in which folks who are outside of the food space, the culinary space rather, is so beautiful. Some of the most fascinating conversations I've had, some of the most transformational spaces I occupy are the ones that are not these. It's where people have priorities in order. And I feel like a lot of times the conversations in Black food, when in food in general, like in restaurants and culinary spaces, gets very superficial very quickly. And it's not to say that we shouldn't be concerned about businesses and we shouldn't be concerned about representation. All those things are absolutely valid. Those are issues that we should be contending with. But I think the sobriety that we need to sort of bring into this moment is really about where our priorities lie. And I feel like farmers have always had the right priorities, right? Fannie Lou, you can't unknow Fannie Lou Hamer once you hear her rail, once you hear her talk about what real parity looks like. And so for me, I mean, I'm listening to smarter people, listening to people who are outside of the rarefied air of the culinary space. And there's something about supporting that work. I mean, we talk about buying from Black farmers, but are we actually interested? Are we actually connecting to these networks? I mean, I'm going to be talking to Reverend Heber Brown in a couple of weeks. Like, he runs the Black Church Food Security Network. It is literally taking and sort of democratizing the land that Black churches have. Like, that's tangible. That is visceral, specific, pointed work. I don't know that chefs should have the answers right now. I think that in terms of in the culinary space or sort of the restaurant space, sure, there's going to be a lot of what is going to happen is not really up to us. I mean, it's policy that we can affect. We should be parts of those conversations. Those things are going to work themselves out. But capitalism is capitalism, and capitalism is going to cap. So it's only so much that we can really do. We have to sort of be prepared to be dexterous like we always been. But in that, I think is an opportunity to think and know more while we are, while we have this opportunity to reprioritize, quiet is the wrong word because I know Erica has not been quiet. She's been working very hard all this time. But in this moment where we have an open line of communication of these platforms, I mean, even Clay and Colleen over on Black Food Folks, like, so much of those conversations have been about, look, just talk to one another. You have community. Some of the most frustrating things I hear when people talk about how people don't show up for them. And very often we don't define what support looks like. We have to recalibrate that sometimes. I think sometimes we discount people's ability to give you dollars or to support in ways that you've not defined, but forget that we literally have a brain trust that is full of minds that are so brilliant and dexterous and think critically about so many of these issues. I don't have answers. I need the accountants that we know in these spaces to talk to me about how we get people better prepared to organize their businesses. I need real estate people to come and have real conversations with us about why commercial real estate is the way it is. That industry is imploded right now. You can't pay your lease, you can't pay your lease. So that industry is going to be in flux. So we need to have real conversations with real estate folks who are going to have to be better actors, better partners in restaurant spaces. Those are all very real, tangible conversations to be had. I don't know. I just feel like we have to sort of rethink what resources look like, and that's at least what I'm working on. I'm working on my book proposal. I'm doing a lot of freelance writing now. I'm doing a lot of interrogation of my own career, but certainly of I'm interested. I'm working on a piece right now that I'm really fascinated by, about why we don't understand or why we have such a disconnect with the function of restaurants. Folks keep talking about they can't wait to go back to their best brunch or whatever. They can't wait to get back to the restaurant spaces. But a big problem is that, especially in sort of Black food spaces, we've not really defined, not shown our work in terms of what the mechanism really looks like. So people take for granted that these spaces are going to be there. Restaurants are not a public trust, but they're treated like that. And I'm really interested in sort of interrogating why that is and what the disparity is. Because if we don't get customers, especially our folks, to buy more into the very real nature of the way restaurants run, and that you can't, we have to, it's not fair to expect people to run businesses outside of a profit. That's just real. So it's be something I'm commissioned, so I'm working on that now. But just for writing in general, I mean, I feel like we all sort of occupy spaces that have a particular kind of expertise. So I'm talking to smarter people than I am and just writing it out.
And that's the best part. I mean, I'm now, I didn't know about this piece, but I'm super excited because I've been having this conversation here with the people that I know, and they're like, why do you feel like it's a dying model? And I'm like, that what you just said, I didn't say it that way, but I'm just saying because the perceived value of food is diminished. People don't understand the value of the work that we do, and they feel like that they should be able to come and get the value of all of these years of expertise and all of this culinary school that I've spent and all this money I spent traveling, learning, and teaching for a minimal price. Not to mention, if I'm trying to support a Black farmer and local people, that there's a perceived value there. I'm not going to Walmart or Sam's Club or Restaurant Depot and buying my food. I'm trying to go and support this ecosystem, and there's a cost associated with that.
Yeah. Also, I think, I mean, a lot of what I'm writing, and specifically in this piece, is really more about not even, and really sort of, I'm not even interested in the posture of like finger pointing or like, y'all don't want to pay. Like, I'm not interested in that posture. I really think it just comes down to, there's a baseline of respect and a baseline of, on both sides when we talk about other cultures. There are Japanese restaurants where there are no prices. There's no menus, like, you know what I mean? Market price. Oh, this is what I'm offering to you. There's a perception about quality that for a long time I was sort of I've been disabused of it, but I was under the misleading conception that if we were able to translate why our food was so dope, people would be willing to pay more for it. And I don't know that I'm really interested in that idea anymore. I'm really more interested in having a space that, I think about Mashama Bailey, right? Think about the gray and how beautiful that space is and how particular and specific she is about everything she puts on a plate. And postures that she occupies from is certainly not about getting anybody to buy into her Blackness or buy into the beauty and the quality and the perfection of the food ways from which she cooks. It's really about setting a very clear tone. And I don't know, that posture change is everything to me. I think that's the way in which we go forward. I think is how we don't have to explain everything, right? Like when you set the tone for how people are supposed to engage you, whether that's in your personal relationships, you talking about earlier, how you have to check white folks. Like, I mean, some part of that is about posture change in terms of what is and isn't expected. But from a culinary point of view, our job as chefs is to be practitioners of our culture, right? Of whatever culture you're cooking from, whatever culture you're creating in a restaurant that you present to the world. And I think it's interesting that we don't do as good a job as we could in terms of setting that expectation, but we get surprised when people don't necessarily respect it. It's undefined. So yeah, in the absence of clarity, people will take advantage.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is an opportunity for us to define. I mean, it doesn't have to be from a negative posture. It can certainly require study. It requires you to care. It requires you to be engaged. But we ain't got that much time right now, and the culture deserves it. We gotta do right by our heritage, right? Like something about history that kind of wraps you up is you kind of get, I don't know. There becomes a responsibility when you know better. And some things don't, I don't know, there's some things that become very clear and very unnecessary when you recognize like more than we've been here before. But we really do have a heritage and legacy to uphold, right? Like the weight of that should should be with you. It should inform decision.
Can I jump in there and ask you, with our culture and our community, as after you just said all that, it's because of like the rioting and the protesting and all these things that are coming about, is our community ready? Is it ready to move forward? Is it ready to advance and actually like come together and be full blown? Because when we do, it's a force to be reckoned with. But are we ready? Do we have the leadership that can move us forward for us to really pull like our culture of food together, our culture of our history together? I mean, we have a very large history from all over the world to pull together, from our food to our history to our livelihood. Are we ready?
I mean, Erica, I don't know. There's something in you talk about. I remember being in. I mean, I remember being a young chef watching that. I remember seeing that Ebony profile, the 25 Black chefs. I remember. I mean, and the thing that was so striking about the 16 chefs and times like last year was like, why are we constantly having this conversation? Why are we constantly? And so I have no answer. Like I feel like I'm letting you down, but I have no answer for whether other folks are ready. I know I'm ready. I know folks. I know the people I know, and I know the community that people I'm talking to, and the chefs I'm watching move in the world and moving the world in a way that is clear eyed. I know they're ready. And I can't. I mean, I don't know whether I don't have the answer for whether everybody's ready. I hope folks
is there like I don't know. I know what I'm trying to say is, but we have specific people that just for our show. You see our show. We're constantly talking about being better ourselves, and moving forward, this and that.
Yeah.
What we've done in the past and how we've progressed to get to where we are now. How many shows are you doing in a week? Right? How many other shows, black chef shows out there, or black inspiring people? What's her name? Tab on TikTok.
Tabitha Brown. Yeah.
Yes, Tabitha Brown. She's coming out and making people feel better on a daily basis. All these people that we're just can pull together and say, yo, it's not the people like Oprah. It's not the people like Tyler Perry. Those are not the people that are going to lead us to be a better culture and pull us together to be better people for ourselves, not for anyone else. Is that possible? I think it's possible.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, but I think the reason what I meant is I don't know people's hearts. I know that there is legit forward movement. I think about. I mean, I don't. The reason I keep so positive and so fired up is because I'm talking to people. I'm watching people move in the world. I talked to Rhonda Martinez is 16 years old. This baby is out here in San Francisco. She's homeschooled. She has the answers. She is at 16 making sure that her craft is being honed daily. She is reading everything I sent her. She reads and absorbs, asks questions. She's in community with other young Black people and who want to be in this work when they grow up, and they have examples to look to. How many examples did you have? How many examples did I have? I feel like the biggest posture change has been our own awakening. What I meant before is not that I just think that we affect change person to person, especially community-based change, right? And so many minds and hearts I've seen change and grow up over the last decade. I've watched people recognize the power and the reckoning of our own culture and the power of it to move their work. And so I don't know that I can't be pessimistic about the fact that when I met you in 2009, 2010, something like that, we didn't have Hannah Hogg yet. Jessica Harris had been writing books since 1985. Hannah Hogg is now the most seminal work. It is the baseline. I don't talk to a 17-year-old until they read Hannah Hogg. I can't give you any resource or information until you got a baseline of knowledge. We have that. Michael Tweedy wrote the Cooking Gene, changed nonfiction form. There is more to know, more to read. It's happening, right? The last decade of books around Black culture have. If I had the Cooking Gene when I was in high school,
oh my God.
So there's something I don't have the capacity to be pessimistic, and I certainly don't discount the fact that human nature is what it is. People gonna people, and some folks just aren't ready. But most of us are. Most of us are tired of giving our souls and lives over to an industry that is not serving us. And I think part of the big deal, part of the big real game change is that we are finding ways to dismantle systems that don't work for us.
Yeah.
Back in the day, Michael Tweedy literally crowdsourced the research for his first book in Community. Like, it was a completely crowdsourced effort. I'm looking at restaurants get open through crowdsourcing. Stephen Satterfield has Whetstone Magazine. It's the most beautiful food publication that centers Black and brown people. Every issue's been crowdsourced. There is power in community. You have to dismantle what your expectations were, or what they are, or how they are compared to how white folks operate and move in the world. Because clearly the system isn't even working for them. So I feel like there's this ability now, this sort of reckoning now, where we can really be specific about building the spaces we want to create. Right. I mean, I don't know. It's not going to look like what they got, and what they got is crumbs to the ground. So why are we worried about that?
Right. And then that's the whole point of this podcast and this conversation. It's not it came out of COVID, but it's not because of COVID. Mm-hmm. These are things that have been burning in my soul. Like I said, I'm in Kansas City, and before I met Erica, I never saw anybody like me. I never worked with anybody like me. I did from a standpoint of, being at a hotel, and that's Miss Brenda, and she's going to train you. But from a standpoint of a culinary perspective, there was one Black teacher at my culinary school, one, and he was teaching business, the business part, one. So that's where I came from. And I feel like at this point, I'm ready to, if I don't know that I'm a leader, but I definitely want to have that conversation and open up that space and that place for our young, and I'm calling them, this is my children's generation. They're the young and the restless, right? I'm having conversations with my kids all week about protesting. This is what you need to have. Where are you going to be? Of course, no. Did I think I was going to have these conversations? No. But am I telling them not to make their voices heard? No. I know that my role in this movement and this change is not on the front lines of protesting. I'm in the background and making sure that I provide a space and a platform of leadership. So Chef Kevin, he's the only Black teacher at his culinary school. This is 2020. The only one educator. That's crazy.
In Charleston.
In Charleston. Of all places.
And again, I don't want to be respectful of everybody's time, but even that part, I talked to Rahana Martinez today, and she's 16, thinking about and sort of interrogating what she's going to do next, whether she's going to go to culinary school, whether that's really the space for her. I mean, Rahana got 6 years on most people. I mean, she's doing the work right now. She's Sergeant and Dominique Crenn and she's out here. So her technical skills are being honed in alternative ways. And in a lot of ways, I got asked this question about sort of culinary school, and hopefully I'll talk to Kevin at some point. Because I have my opinions. I'm sure he has his, but in my opinion, I don't think that I am beholden to my heritage of culinary education. I value the space that culinary education sort of occupies. It's important for what it is. But on the background of our culture, culinary schools are not built for this kind of work. I think about the ability to have minds like Jessica Harris's out in the world. I think about the ability of this very limited space to think about the expansiveness of our food culture. And that work is happening ongoing, right? There are books being published. There are folks who are interrogating this through writing. It's happening, right? But part of that is source material. And I mean, Kevin is writing. He's on the battlegrounds and culinary schools. I'm interested in us sort of thinking more broadly about where the exploration of our culture is going to happen. And I'm naturally skeptical, but dubious about relying on spaces that have no relative skin in our cultural game to be responsible for translating that culture when we've not really done the work of translating it for ourselves. So I just feel like there's such an opportunity now to just, I don't know, there's an opportunity for us not to be so seduced by having our culture, I don't know, revered by other folks. We have spaces that exist currently that are perfectly suited to let it happen and let it breathe and let it blossom and let it be ready for our consumption. So,
and I feel like that's a good place to put a bookmark. We may be coming back next week with the culinary education piece and just seeing how that piece works and speaks. So thank you guys so much for watching the conversation. Teresa, please, when we get off here, post all of your details in the links so that people have access to your work if they are actually interested in reading your work and not following your work. So we will see you guys.
You guys have a great week and be safe out there.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.